Okay, persistence in sport, Jordan. That's our topic for today.
Good
How do you
topic.
feel? How do you feel about persistently knocking over your protein shake before our session today?
Not good, but all you can do is bounce back, clean it up, and get back to task. That's all I can
Uh,
do.
Does that mean you're going to give up on having protein shakes now for the rest of your life?
No, I don't think so. Just be a bit more careful. That's it.
Ah, very good, very good. So, people's topic of the day is persistence for athletes. I'm sure a lot of people are going to love this one out there. It's an essential. All right, we do a talk beforehand, and we work out the good stuff from the bad stuff. So one of the things we agreed on was it's an essential. It's not something that um, you know, you can have optional as, oh, sometimes I'm going to be persistent, sometimes I'm not. I mean, if you're going to be great at whatever sport you are, whether it's table tennis, synchronized swimming, golf, tennis, whatever, one of the commonalities is you need this thing called persistence. Now, some people refer to this as being stubborn in a negative way. I'm sure, like, think to yourself, have you ever been called stubborn? And think to yourself, well, is stubborn really that different from being persistent? Probably not. It's just viewed that you're doing something that not people, they're not liking. You know,
Yeah,
what's your thoughts on all that?
yeah, I definitely agree. It's a positive spin on looking at. I guess it's a different mentality. Like it's that no matter what happens in any given day or any given result, I'm going to stick to the reason for why I'm doing my sport, and I'm going to be persistent, and I'm going to keep coming back day in, day out, committing to every training session, every competition, to reviewing how I went, taking feedback, then committing to the next training session. It's a skill, like you said, that I would say every successful athlete has to have. It's not an optional thing. So
I
100%.
remember you bringing back memories for me here. I remember my brother laughing at me because I heard on the radio one day. I heard this thing with this guy. I think he was talking about financial stuff, and he goes, "Persistence pays dividends." And that's not going to mean a lot to a lot of people, but for me, it was one of those kind of belief statements that stuck in my mind. I was like, yeah, persistence pays off, doesn't it? Like that sticking to what you want really pays off.
Yeah. And it like we talked about in our last video when we were talking about habits, it adds up. It's like paying dividends and compounding.
Mm.
If you're consistently turning up, regardless of what happens, but you just keep knocking at the door, it'll start to add up. And then and hopefully you'll get big rewards for it.
So let's try and help people work out, like, if you're not persistent, how do you become persistent? And if you are persistent, how do you stick with it when the times are tough? All right. So I'm going to rattle out a little poem here that I did for you earlier because I think it's a winner. Now, I committed this to memory early on in life, and I would suggest people do the same. Okay, so it's this one. It's called "Success is Failure Turned Inside Out. It's the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit." I mean, that for me summed up persistence like a
Yep, sure.
boss.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does it say? Basically, times will get tough. Look for the positive and keep on going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So little things like that can, you talked about earlier things that affect who you are, finding your why. Talk to people more about that.
Yeah, so I think a big thing that we need to be aware of is if we're going to be persistent, we can't just use willpower. Like we can't be like, oh, I'm going to do this and I don't really have a very good reason, but I'm just going to commit to it. That is a finite resource and it's just not sustainable. It's not going to last. And
Do you
so
think, hey, do you think we're brought up thinking that willpower will solve everything, basically? Like, you're just not trying hard enough?
yeah, possibly. And maybe for certain things it does work.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have an assignment due and you've got to use willpower to get it done and hand it in and then it's done.
Yeah.
But we're talking about being an elite athlete. And that is something that you just don't finish and you just get it done. You have to be consistent and have really good habits and behaviors day in, day out. So willpower won't cut it. So we need like a why. So that's something that like athletes really need to find. It's like, why am I trying to be an elite athlete? What's my reasoning? And that's going to be different for everyone else. But you really need to move from being like someone that uses willpower to someone that has a really powerful internal reason for why they're practicing and training and eating. And it's going to be different for everyone. Some people want to be a professional, want to try and make a lot of money, be on TV, travel the world, whatever it might be for you. I think it needs to be like a really fulfilling reason, something that like really gets the fire going. And then when you might have a day where you don't really feel like it, or it's a bit cold, or you're not in a good mood, sometimes if you're just using willpower, that won't cut it. But if you've got to really know, this is why I'm doing this, this is my why.
Yeah.
Get through those little speed humps.
Yeah, I think to myself, when you run into someone and they get all excited about something in life and they start telling you about it and they think it's the best thing ever. And I just think to myself, yeah, but do you really have the persistence to carry that great idea through? Are you going to be the person 3 months from now that's got through, the first 4 bad times where it seemed like it was a horrible idea and times have got rough and you're still going? I mean, that for me rattles along in the back of my head thinking, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have strong motivators, if you haven't got a good why, it'll just sort of fizzle out.
I think about how many people read books. They read a good book and they're like, oh yeah, no, I didn't do anything with that. Yeah.
Or I did it for a week.
Yeah.
And then
persistence is a very, very big one. I would like people to kind of think of themselves as a bit of a heat-seeking missile. You can lock into things. So get an idea in your head and then see if you can lock into it in a good way. Obviously, but you can do that in a bad way to a bad idea that doesn't help you much or other people around you. But one of the things to do that, to become a locked-in type of mechanism, is I think you need to refresh the ideas daily. You need to go over them, repeat them. Repetition is a simple one. Today's a simple topic, persistence, but yeah, I mean, going over stuff each day. How could people do that? Like, what methods would you recommend?
Yeah, it could be something maybe you could write it down, maybe write it on your mirror.
Yep.
Like a few things that you want to do. I want to be a PGA Tour player, or I want to surf on the World Surf Tour, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just something that you constantly see every day, like you're saying, and then it starts to add up, and it gives you that why day in, day out, and lets you be persistent. Because if it's just a bit, I guess if you're not intentional about choosing something, it'll be easy for it to lose focus, and it'll be easy for the willpower to not be there anymore. So constant reminders is a great idea.
Hey, we talked about this other thing, and you mentioned how you've been watching this Michael Jordan show, and we stumbled across the idea that's been around forever, which is getting motivated and being persistent about something that you despise, that you hate. This seems like, negative mindset stuff, but it's not really. It's quite powerful. Talk to us about that.
It can be really powerful. Yeah, I think obviously there's positive motivators as well, but sometimes like things that you hate can be a really powerful motivator as well. And you see a lot of really successful athletes like hate losing. They absolutely hate it. They might hate feeling unprepared, or they might hate feeling not fit enough to compete. Like in the Michael Jordan documentary, there was a couple of times where he's like, he feel like his body wasn't ready to compete in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that he hated it, and it burnt inside of him. And it just was this incredibly powerful motivator. And I think it's quite common in really high level athletes as well, that across pretty much all sports, there's something like they hate it. They hate something about it.
I mean, one of my sports is running. I'm thinking back, I hated not being able to finish a good running session where, halfway you ran out of steam and your legs were just burning and then you couldn't finish off the session strong. Yeah. I mean, that for me propelled me forward with some things. Runners hate not finishing a race, What about for you?
I mean, yeah, I think I hated feeling unprepared. If I was I used to play in a golf tournament.
Yeah.
And if I went and I didn't know the course and I didn't know where to hit the tee shots and I didn't know what the greens look like, there's just no way you can compete really. You're not prepared.
Yeah. Okay. So you hated that feeling of I haven't done my best before I've even turned up here. Yeah.
I haven't done my homework.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to compete because like we were saying about like talking and looking at what really good athletes do, that's what they do. They're prepared. They're ready. They know what they're going to be facing. And and they use that to motivate them. So
I guess the takeaway on that, hey, sorry, the takeaway is for people to basically find out what they despise.
Yeah, if you find out what you hate about, like pick a fight with something about what your sport. Find something that motivates you that you hate about your sport or something to do with the training. You're like, I don't want that to happen. I hate that.
Yeah, it's powerful, huh?
Yeah, it's maybe not. Oh, it's not always positive and lovely. Sometimes it can go the other way, but still be powerful. And if it gets us to be successful, obviously we do things and still use our good values and still be respectful to other people and do everything right along the way. But it can get us to be really successful.
Yeah, absolute doozy. Persistence and sticking to things when times are tough. Let's have a quick scan. Make sure we haven't left anything out for people here. What have we got here? Repetition, doing things. We've covered that. Motivation, not losing. I think that's pretty good. So, a couple of thoughts just to wrap up on. So, being persistent, again, it's got to come from your beliefs. Mm-hmm. It's got to lock into, we've talked a lot about your habits, your identity. You got to see yourself as someone who's persistent. So, the first place to start is get a friend to ask you, or ask yourself really quickly and go, am I a persistent person? And if the answer is not screaming out in your brain, yeah, I am. That's who I am. I'm persistent. Mm-hmm. Well, then the first port of call for you would be to start working on that identity statements, looking for little ways that you are persistent. So, for example, you just even tiny things. You're doing the dishes. All right, I'm going to finish these off before I move on,
Yeah, it all adds up.
Yeah. That. All right, there's my final thoughts. Over to you. What's your final thoughts on persistence?
So I think if we're going to link back to our why, talk about why am I doing this? Why do I want success in my sport? So you're going to think about, all right, so what's going to guide me? And you might sort of think that, I think like the modeling thing that we talked about and looking at really good athletes. So like this guy, say, is a professional at his sport. And it's sort of like, all right, what sort of person do I need to become to be like that person? So it's kind of like, I have my why, which is good. And now it's like, now who do I need to become to do that? Is it just me practicing twice a week? No, probably not. So look at some skills and qualities of some really successful people in your sport and say like, what qualities do they have that I would like to see in myself? So sort of look to become your why. So I think that's like a really good way of framing it. So you have your why, and then you're like, all right, am I living in line with that? Do my actions represent that? And map that out for yourself. Write it down in a book and
Yeah. So if people haven't got themselves a training diary by now, as they've gathered with watching a few of these videos, you're going to need a training diary to write some of these great thoughts, ideas, and stuff like that.
Get them out of your head and get them down somewhere.
Get them down. Yep. All right. Very good. Thank you, fellow champions of the world. We will talk with you in the next one. Any ideas for the next one?
I'm not sure right now. I think we might have to be persistent with that and start brainstorming some ideas. We got to turn up every week and do a video.
Thankfully for people, they know we're persistent and they will get another video. Let's end on that.
We'll have some good values. We'll have a good why. And we'll have a good video next time.
All right. See you, champions.